What's up guys, it's Tom here and welcome to another Manchester City video where we have to talk about this case again because Man City are waging war against the Premier League because they emailed all 19 other Premier League clubs to go against the tribunal's verdict and to basically disregard the Premier League's fair market value sponsorship deal rulings that the tribunal's verdict upheld. And Man City accused Premier League of misleading clubs over this verdict, and they are trying to incite a civil war against the Premier League among the Premier League clubs, which is absolutely disgraceful and it's abhorrent and disgusting. And I really hope that the Premier League now will come down even harder on Manchester City. Not only do the Premier League want Man City to get relegated, they also want to get them relegated with a stipulation that they can only come back to the Premier League if the current owners of the United Arab Emirates sell the club. And that is also a major development that we will talk about in this video, and I think that would be fantastic news for the whole of the Premier League. It would be much more fair competition. Imagine if we could have Premier League winners, different winners every 2 years, or every year a different club could win the Premier League. How amazing that would be. The competition would be so much better. And Man City have raised the stakes in their battle with the Premier League, according to this article, taking the unusual step of writing to all the other 19 Premier League clubs to accuse the Premier League of misleading them. City's email letter disputes the conclusions drawn by the Premier League, claiming they repeat several inaccuracies. Man City's General Counsel Simon Cliff himself wrote this email to all the 19 clubs, threatening them and trying to incite them to go to war against the Premier League with Manchester City. In a message to the clubs and the league's leadership, regrettably the summary is misleading and contains several inaccuracies. The email said, while it is true that Man City did not succeed with every point that it ran in its rigor challenge, the club did not need to prove that the fair market value sponsorship deal rules are unlawful for lots of different reasons. It is enough that they are unlawful for one reason. In the event, the tribunal found that these rules are unlawful for 3 different sets of reasons, and basically Man City want these rules to be abolished, to be removed, so they can sign a huge deal with Etihad Airways, who are owned by the same guy who owns Manchester City, the Sheikh of Abu Dhabi. And Man City want this huge amount of money to come into the club, so even if they get relegated, they will have a lot of money to play with, even in the lower leagues, which I find absolutely disgusting and despicable. And yes, there were a couple of rules by the Premier League that were unlawful, but the Premier League said that they can quickly and effectively be remedied and be fixed by the Premier League and the clubs. And the Premier League has called an emergency meeting for next week to discuss plans. And Simon Cliff, on behalf of Man City, wrote to other clubs saying that given the findings in the award, this is the time for careful reflection by all clubs and not for a quick knee-jerk reaction. Such an unwise course would be likely to lead to further legal proceedings with further legal costs. It is critical for member clubs to feel that they can have trust in their regulator. So basically they are threatening clubs. So if they side with the Premier League, then they would have to pay even more money in legal costs and legal proceedings. When the Premier League consulted on and proposed the original fair market value sponsorship deal rules in late 2021, we pointed out that the process was rushed, ill thought out, and it would result in rules that were anti-competitive. The recent award has validated those concerns entirely, which is not true. Basically, Man City are saying those rules should be abolished. There shouldn't be fair market value sponsorship deals. There should be just any value sponsorship deals. Pay the club, Man City, whatever they want through their owner. And that's absolutely disgusting, and it would absolutely destroy football in England, and it would destroy the fair competition in the league. And Man City are basically lying in this email because they are saying that the tribunal has declared the APT rules to be unlawful, which is not true. They only declared like 2 minor rules regarding the shareholder loans, that they should have interest with a fair market interest Otherwise, the tribunal found that these fair market value sponsorship rules are absolutely crucial to upholding the integrity and the competitiveness of the Premier League. And a professor in accounting and sport finance at the University of Portsmouth said the ruling was likely to result in a small amendments being made to the rules, but there would be a requirement for the Premier League to improve its regulatory practices. So this professor said where the case will have implications is on the governance system and the regulation of clubs in the Premier League. Expect tighter drafting of rules, more testing of rules in similar cases, and an expanded in-house regulatory and compliance team within the Premier League. The league already has spent more than £50 million on legal advice in the past year and legal fees in the fighting cases. This is the fault of the Premier League, of course. The professor said that this would be the most cost-effective and efficient way to deal with required changes going forward, where particularly given the Premier League's emergency regulatory role, where previously the focus was mostly on the commercial side. And it is clear that the Premier League's letter is an effort to ensure the clubs don't enact new rules in the interim. The letter came across in a very clear way as a threat to other Premier League clubs. It smacks of more desperation. The other reason Man City is likely desperate that the entire rules are considered void of the fair market value sponsorship deals is they still believe such an outcome will help them argue for weaker sanctions on the 115 charges against them, but I don't see it, not with how the decision was constructed. It made crystal clear the importance of fair market value sponsorship rules. That is the very foundation of the profit and sustainability rules, so the tribunal verdict upheld that and just cemented them in place, so they will stay in place no matter how hard Man City are trying to flap around. And that means that the 115 or 130 charges against the Premier League can only be construed in the most severe way against the Manchester City. And Martin Ziegler has an update on this case, saying that the tribunal panel was asked by Man City and by the Premier League to deliver further explanation on their ruling, which will be critical to the future of the associated party rules, the fair market value sponsorship deal rules, and the huge new Etihad deal. So Man City would want these rules out of action in order to sign an absolute monster Etihad deal. Imagine 100, 150, 200 million pounds per year Etihad would pay to Manchester City. Man City think that it will allow them to survive the tough winters of a few years outside of the Premier League following sanctions from the independent committee or independent commission that are dealing with the 115 charges against the Premier League. But that won't help if they are permanently expelled until there is a change of ownership. And I suspect, and many people suspect, that that is the sanction that the Premier League board is pushing for these 130 charges against the Premier League. And it's warranted too as well. So Man City will be expelled from the Premier League until, of course, they get promoted on the football pitch and their owners sell the club to somebody else who is only an investor and not a whole state, a whole country. Newcastle, on the other hand, would absolutely love a free run to sign some inflated sponsorship contracts. Of course, they would still need to comply with UEFA rules, so they would only inflate their sponsorship deals a bit so they can squeeze into the UEFA financial fair play rules. And there is confirmation that the findings by this three-man panel, who are all retired senior judges, are still yet to come, means that there is still some uncertainty over the final outcome of this verdict over, Man City suing the Premier League over the fair market value sponsorship deal rules. And it's absolutely crucial that they explain the findings, because Man City are about to sign a monster new deal with Etihad Airways, so that these new rules need to be clarified. The situation is likely to mean the civil war that has flared up in the Premier League will continue to rage, with Man City on Tuesday threatening more legal action if the Premier League tries to implement immediate changes to these sponsorship rules. Man City are claiming the tribunal's ruling means that all the rules are void around fair market value sponsorship deals. The Premier League insists that only narrow parts of their rules have been declared unlawful, and that its basic risk system remains intact, and so it can plan making the necessary changes. What has become clear is that the ruling had such an impact in English football when it was published on Tuesday that the tribunal's full explanation could be an even greater earthquake for the future of football in England. The fact that the tribunal has more to say was hinted at Man City's letter to all the other 19 clubs, and some of the clubs who received these letters were absolutely infuriated by the letter's tone and the letter's implied threat. Because the majority of the Premier League clubs are against Manchester City, and they testified for the Premier League against Man City in this court case. The letter from Simon Cliff, I already read out to you guys the major points. Insiders have also confirmed to the Times newspaper that the Premier League has agreed that the tribunal needs to issue further guidance about what its ruling means in relation to the status of the fair market value sponsorship deals. However, the Premier League's legal guidance is understood to be that the fair market value sponsorship deal rules, the associated party transaction rules, remain intact apart from the amendments agreed in January, including those that put the burden of proof on clubs to show that deals were of fair market value. So it believes that it can already start to remedy the parts of the rules that were deemed unlawful. The Premier League already wants to remedy and amend the rules, including around making shareholder loans part of the new set of rules. However, no decisions or vote will be taken at the emergency Premier League shareholders meeting, called for Wednesday next week over the tribunal's ruling. But the Premier League chiefs will want to be given authority regarding the direction of where they want to go. For the other clubs caught up in this crisis and other representatives of English football, there are real concerns about the future of the league and the impact it is having on the Premier League's image. It is all thoroughly depressing. It doesn't look like getting better anytime soon. That's how one senior football figure described the latest developments. And overshadowing all this is, of course, the hearing into Man City's 115 alleged breaches of Premier League rules that has been taking place near St. Paul's Cathedral in London. Many believe that the legal challenge against the associated party transaction rules is as much Man City taking the fight to the Premier League in another legal arena as it is about the club's anger at their new Etihad deal being rejected. And if this week has been seismic, imagine when the result of the hearing into the 115 or 130 charges against the Premier League will be published, then the earthquake will be seismic. It will be of the Richter scale, according to this journalist. So I'm actually very happy that the Premier League rejected the Etihad deal that Man City wanted to sign, because it's not fair market value, and the Premier League absolutely has to uphold these rules, so Man City can't keep getting away with cheating and cooking their books and inflating their sponsorship deals and getting an unfair advantage on all the other Premier League clubs. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. See you later, guys. Goodbye.